Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to go over the top 10 left and right-handed defensemen in NHL 23. We were also revealed the 10 fastest skaters on the back end, so we're going to break that down as well. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below in terms of if you agree with the ratings, you disagree, who you think should be in, who you think should be out. And guys, don't forget to subscribe for the most up-to-date NHL 23 news, tips, and info. All right, let's get into it. All right, guys, here are our top-rated left defensemen for NHL 23. Kick things off down at the bottom with Shea Theodore, and it does show on the website their X factors as well as some of their other abilities. Now, last year, Shea Theodore, as a whole, his X Factor card didn't really have a ton of value because of his X Factors and the abilities that were on there for defensemen specifically. Heat Seeker just did not hit the same or what we thought it might in NHL 22. Elite Edges is a phenomenal ability no matter what position you're using. Seeing Eye and Send It both are kind of useless in my opinion. Again, let me know your thoughts on them down below if you want to know more about abilities. I did a great video with the North American champion of the Game World Championships, breaking down all of the best abilities from a competitive standpoint. But again, he remains an X Factor, which I think he's on the borderline, but his abilities just aren't really huge impacts on the back end. Next up at number 9, we've got one of the most underrated defensemen in the league in Jacob Slaven. In terms of in-game, he's a phenomenal card and player, specifically talking to Hut. But also outside of that, I think he should be higher in-game. He is one of the best defensemen in the league, and I think if you don't watch Carolina Hurricanes games, and again, they're a smaller market, so there's probably a lot of you, myself included, you go and take a look at his analytics. Like, he's just an incredible defender. It reminds me a lot of Marc-Edouard Vlasic, and usually those defenders don't get the same amount of love. But he comes with gold shutdown, silver quick pick, and stick 'em up, which is a phenomenal combo, at least at the early stages of the game. So he looks like he's going to be another strong X Factor player for Hockey Ultimate Team, and he comes in as an 87 overall. I think this is the one I would bump up much higher, but that's just me. Coming in at number 8 is Zach Warrensky. He is not getting a gold zone ability X Factor. He's got Seeing Eye, Stick 'em Up, and Tape to Tape. He comes in at 87. Following him is Quinn Hughes, one of the better cards to go after early on in game. Again, no X Factor ability. He's got Elite Edges, Send It, and Tape to Tape. In my opinion, Send It just does not have any value in Hockey Ultimate Team because long stretch passes, you should probably be shooting it outside of or off the boards or up the ice as opposed to passing it. And if you don't know what I mean, I'll have videos that will explain it going into 23. Tape to Tape, I think as the year went along, did help, but with the changes going back to more pass assists being in game, I don't know if Tape to Tape is still going to have the same impact. So Quinn Hughes, though, his skating does make him extremely useful, but not an X Factor this year. And it's kind of crazy because in their first year, Quinn Hughes and Makar were neck and neck in terms of their career trajectory, and just wild what a couple of seasons will do is Cale Makar, the best defender probably, or one of them in the game, and Quinn Hughes just hasn't really had that big boom yet. Coming in at number 6 is Rasmus of the Buffalo Sabers. He's 88 overall, no X Factor ability. Does have silver Elite Edges, Puck on a String, and Send It. Elite Edges, I think, is useful, especially when you consider his size, but the other two just not really going to be useful, but he does not seem to have an X Factor ability, so no X Factor card for him. Is an 88 overall at launch of the game, and it'll be curious to see whenever he gets master set players and things like that, he's always one of the better defenders early on. I think he had a great year, over 50 points again on a really bad team, and looks to be one of the best defenders up and coming in the league, so I'm okay with his spot at number 6. Number 5 is Miro Heiskanen, and man, he looks like he's on the Victor Hedman trajectory. His point totals aren't super impressive, again in the 30s, but he just looks like it takes a lot longer for defensemen, some of them outside of the Bobby Orr type Cale Makar trajectory, but nonetheless, like he looks like he is going to be a top end defender for a very long time. He's not going to get an X Factor card, has Elite Edges, in reverse, Send It, and Tape to Tape, but always good, decent size, always good skating, and a decent shot as well early on in game. He's a good card to target. Morgan Rielly comes up next. Phenomenal offensive defenseman. I think that it's become apparent that he's not a number 1 though. And I think that it leads to a lot of issues with the Toronto Maple Leafs as a whole. And again, Leafs fans, let me know. He's an incredible offensive defenseman, but he reminds me a lot of the San Jose Shark version of Erik Karlsson, where you're not getting the same, like, even Karlsson as an Ottawa center, not super elite in his own zone, but amazing offensively. Given all of that, I think he's a little high on this list. I honestly think Slaven should be up very, very high, but his point totals, I think, hold him back compared to these other guys that are flashy, but no X factor for Morgan Rielly, but he is the fourth highest rated left defenseman. Devon Toews from the Colorado Avalanche. He was not in the top 10 last year, jumped all the way up to number 3. And I gotta say, I think he's a perfect first-line pairing with Cale Makar in the way that he plays. He had a great offensive year. I don't think he's the third best left defenseman in the game, however. So this one's a little high for me, but I can understand the rating just because of the season that they had. But they usually don't take this much recency bias into play. He has elite edges and tape to tape, so he is not an X factor. And kind of surprising that the third highest rated left defenseman is not an X factor card. So I'm kind of curious if they are just not releasing as many X factors. We had 50 at launch of the game. We know there are some women getting X factor cards, so maybe that's playing into it. But the third highest rated left-handed defenseman not being an X factor, which is kind of crazy to me. Then we've got number 2, Victor Hedman. He has got gold, stick 'em up, quick pick, seeing eye, send it, shutdown, and thunderclap. Victor Hedman, as we know, his team of the season card last year, one of the best in the game, and he is always going to be one of the best because of his size. And once he gets a few cards that have decent skating, that's when he really becomes dominant in Hockey Ultimate Team. Stick 'em up, in my opinion, is going to be, unless there's some AP limit changes, and don't worry, I am not talking to them about ever adjusting AP, guys, so I've learned my lesson. I'm not giving my feedback on that, but just if it stays what it is, stick 'em up is one of, if not the best defensive abilities in game. And shutdown is still extremely effective as well, especially as a silver ability. Quick pick early on is key because defensive awareness is not maxed out. As it gets later on in the year, it becomes less and less useful, but still a phenomenal card, and he's going to be sought after early on. And then number 1, we've got Roman Yossi, and I don't disagree with this. I think that Roman Yossi I think he's underrated. I honestly think that he's underrated. I watched so many Nashville Predators games last year just because either it was a game I was betting on or because of Duchesne when his Evo streak was going on. It is absolutely incredible what Yossi does for the Nashville Predators. I mentioned that Morgan Rielly reminds me of Carlson as a Shark. Roman Yossi reminds me of Erik Karlsson as an Ottawa Senator. Like, every single breakout, offensive zone cycle, every cycled shooting chance off a cycle, all goes to Roman Yossi. Like, it is wild that they force feed him that much, and without him, I think that's why he had MVP considerations last year after his incredible season. I have no problem with him being the number 1 rated defenseman among lefties, or left-handed defensemen. Just an incredible player, and getting gold, send it in reverse, puck on a string, wheels and thunderclap. Weak abilities for him, but still one of the better cards that you can get in players early on. So Roman Yossi is your number 1 left defenseman at 93 overall. So again, guys, let me know who you think is maybe left off the list that shouldn't be. If you agree with Devon Toews being number 3 and Morgan Rielly, where you would fit him in. It's interesting seeing the landscape of left defensemen. I think that there is no longer a huge plethora of them. I honestly think that righties have a little bit more depth in the real NHL, and it's kind of crazy to me because in terms of forwards and really any other player, right-handed defensemen are a lot more rare in the NHL than lefties, so usually there's a lot more lefties that are more viable or higher end, but man, I think that it's opposite on defense right now. But nonetheless, let me know what you think about the left defenseman. Let's get into the righties for NHL 23. All right, we'll kick things off with the Calder Trophy winner, Moritz Cider, who is becoming an X factor in NHL 23. I love that. He had a phenomenal year, over 50 points, like just a wild season, and Yzerman did it again. I will never forget when, I think it was Yzerman's first year as a Red Wing GM, and he made the pick for Cider, and I remember watching TSN, and they had to like fumble and figure out the graphics, and the desk was like, just goes to show why he is considered one of the best general managers in the game. His ability to scout is absurd, and he found one of the best right defenseman in the game. He's getting gold, send it, and stick him up. His size makes him great in Hockey Ultimate Team, and I think that he's going to be a pretty decent skater as well. Send it, again, I think that that's useless in Hockey Ultimate Team. And for anyone that doesn't realize and disagrees, let me know, but I will explain in future videos when the full game comes out. Stick him up is going to be very impactful still, especially with the nerfs to Pocheck. I think that the Pocheck abilities now are really going to be more useful because of a lot of the nerfs to them. So he comes in at number 10, and honestly, I think there's an argument that he should be higher. Dougie Hamilton comes in at number 9. He falls down a little bit compared to last year, former Niagara Ice Dog. Great size and still one of the best right defensemen in the game. It does not look like he is getting any abilities based on the website. So not only did he fall right out of, being an X Factor player in Hockey Ultimate Team, it looks like in Versus, he's just not getting any abilities, which is stunning to me. But man, a tough year for him with that injury. He's going to have a big bounce back, I would bet, with the New Jersey Devils, but big fall from him in NHL 23. Chris Letang, who just continues to do it, comes in at number 8. His no X Factor this year. Heat Seeker, in reverse, quick pick, and send it are his abilities. One of the better skaters early on in the game, so he's usually one of the more popular picks, just again early on because speed is so important over size early on in the game. He comes in as the 8th right defenseman in NHL 23. I honestly think that he should be a little bit higher. I think that offensively he is still one of the best. It's wild to the seasons that he puts up, so he comes in at number 8. Drew Doughty is number 7, not an X Factor in NHL 23. He's got Ice Pack, Quick Pick, Send It, and Stick Him Up in Versus, so keep that in mind. He's an 89 overall. Obviously, the injury really impacted the Kings last year, especially in the playoffs. A really bounce-back year the year before when he was widely considered one of the worst contracts in the NHL. We'll see what he can do this year, but as it stands right now, he comes in at number 7 and is not an X Factor in NHL 23. Aaron Ekblad is number 6 among right defensemen. No X Factor for him in Hockey Ultimate Team or in Versus. Heat Seeker, Quick Pick, Seeing Eye, and Send It. Great size and usually a really good skating stat early on too, so always a card that's really useful, especially if he gets an event card early on. Comes in at number 6. We'll see what he can do without Mackenzie Weegar. The defense in Florida did get a little bit worse going into this year, but he is still a stud, and as long as he can stay healthy, he's probably going to put up a great number. Coming in at number 5 is Alex Pietrangelo. I think honestly he is holding on due to his name value for being this high. Offensively, just not the same player as he's moved over to Vegas. 89 overall. I mean, I think there's an argument that, I think Moritz Cider should be higher up, but I mean, I guess obviously only one season. Chris Letang, too, there's an argument. Even Aaron Ekblad, now over Alex Pietrangelo in terms of ratings, but I guess they're all at 89 essentially, so can't really argue there. He is not a X Factor in NHL 23, so he did lose that. So that is interesting. Charlie Mcavoy checks in at number 4 among right defensemen, is an X Factor going into NHL 23, as he should be. He's one of the best defensemen in the game. Hopefully his injury he can come back from. Gold, stick him up. Going to be useful, I can tell you that right now. So he's got shutdown, tape to tape, so his X Factor card could have some play if you are someone that's looking to upgrade his X Factor card early on. I think that this is a really good card, or a good player, obviously, and number 4 is probably a good spot for him in terms of right defenseman. Number 3 is the Washington Capitals' John Carlson. Still an X Factor with Gold, Thunderclap, Heat Seeker, Seeing Eye, Send It, and Tape to Tape. I think Thunderclap just doesn't have the same pull as some of the other abilities among defensemen, but really no argument here. He's still one of the better, offensive defensemen, as well as someone who's very, very good in his own zone for the Washington Capitals. He comes in at number 3 among righties. Number 2 is Adam Fox. He's got Gold, Tape to Tape, and Elite Edges, as well as Quick Pick and Send It as his X Factor ability, so he is back as an X Factor. 90 overall. We'll touch on his skating in just a little bit, but still among some of the best right defensemen in the game. There could be an argument that Mcavoy is above him now, but he's coming off, a season where just after he won the Norris Trophy, so really no complaints there in all honesty. And then number 1, no surprise, Cale Makar, as he takes takes the #1 right defenseman spot, and he's probably going to be here for the next 5 to 10 years. He's got gold elite edges, heat seeker, in reverse, seeing eye, send it, and stick him up. I think that stick him up and elite edges on this card is going to make him very useful, even though due to his size, once everyone's skating catches up. But early on in game, you can get Cale Makar. You can make up for a lot of deficiencies where defensemen don't have a ton of skating, especially in Hockey Ultimate Team. So let me know what you think, guys, of the right defenseman in NHL 23. Now, we also got word from EA via Twitter, the top 10 fastest defensemen. So I thought I'd touch on this. Cale Makar with 96 speed. Really no shock there. Quinn Hughes is up at 93, which as he should. Adam Fox at 92. Part of me thinks it's because he's smaller and they make him more viable, because I don't think that he is that elite of a skater. Samuel Girard at 92. Morgan Riley at 91. Ryan Merkley at 90 overall. Super interesting. I don't even know if he's going to make the Sharks, but he is going to be one of the fastest defensemen early on in the game. Bowen Byram's got a 90. John Klingberg at 90 as well. And then Spurgeon and Miro Heiskanen rounding out the top 10. So those are your fastest defensemen in terms of versus ratings and, well, early on in Hockey Ultimate Team for NHL 23. So let me know again your thoughts on the top 10s, guys. I know ratings are always very controversial when it comes to how EA does them. Let me know who you agree and disagree with, and if you think that maybe some of the shockers that no longer have X factors, or maybe some that do now. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comment section down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.